Hello, 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 and welcome back to Grace in the In Between. My name is Lindzé, and I'm so glad you've joined me today. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but I couldn't move past it. You see, a lot of memories have flooded my mind this week. Well, these past few weeks since the girls have all been together. I mean, I can remember something embarrassing I said years ago, as though it happened yesterday. I can remember prayers I thought God had forgotten about. I can remember seasons I was convinced would never end. But sometimes I forget the ordinary miracles, the many prayers that God quietly answered, or the times that He carried me when I didn't even realize He was doing it. You know, this week, the girls and I, we naturally gravitated to talking about the old days. And honestly, I'd forgotten some of it. We'd tell a story and I'd suddenly think to myself, oh my goodness, I'd completely forgotten that happened. And isn't it strange how the mind works? Sometimes we forget some of the hardest seasons of our lives, or we just push them to the back of our mind until someone reminds us. And then one of them said, oh my goodness, the dark days. I mean, we can laugh about it now. It wasn't funny back then. Those were the years when life felt really hard. And those years changed us. I remember I used to sit and make lists and I put it at the back of my door. And the girls would watch me. So they would also sit and make lists and stick them on the walls and everywhere the bathroom, the kitchen. But these lists were prayers and dreams and things we were believing God for. And it wasn't because we had a perfect plan. No. Honestly, at that time when I started making the lists, I just didn't know what else to do. Because writing it down felt like the only way of saying, Lord, we're still trusting you. And honestly, there were days I genuinely couldn't picture what life would look like on the other side. But I would keep telling the girls that everything is going to be fine and everything is going to work out. And looking back, I smile because there were days I wasn't even sure I believed those words myself. I think I was saying them as much for me as I was for them. I keep saying them anyway until I believe those words, and I still do today. But I know back then, I couldn't imagine the conversations we'd be having now. I couldn't imagine my girls talking about university life or careers or relationships, traveling, all the things they'd been dreaming about. Back then, we were just trying to get through one day. And after everyone had gone off to do their own thing, I stayed sitting there for a little while. And I looked around the room and I had one of those moments that catches you completely off guard. I just whispered, Lord, look what you have done. And not because everything worked out exactly the way I'd imagined it would. It didn't. Life still has its challenges. I still have prayers I'm waiting on. I still make lists, lots of them. But this is not a new feeling because I'd thanked God before and I thank God all the time. But every now and then, He gives you a moment where you step back from the details and you suddenly see bigger picture. That's what it felt like. For a few minutes, all I could see was his faithfulness. And that conversation, it sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole, because I found myself thinking about all the times in the Bible God tells his people to remember. Not because he'd forgotten what he'd done, but because he knew they would. And I've been reading the book of 1 Samuel, just started it last week. And I came to the part where God had given Israel victory over the Philistines. And Samuel picked up a stone and set it where everyone could see it. And he called it Ebenezer. And that means the stone of help. And when he had said it, he said these words, "Thus far, the Lord has helped us." And you can find that in 1 Samuel 7 verse 12. Thus far, the Lord has helped us. He didn't say we'd finally made it. He didn't say life will never be hard again. He had simply stopped long enough to acknowledge that God has brought us this far. And it makes me think, do we stop and do that? Because we're always chasing the next thing, the next prayer, the next goal, the next breakthrough. We're already asking God for tomorrow before we've thanked Him for today. And can you imagine how different our hearts would feel if every now and then we built our own little Ebenezers? Not actual stones, but moments where we stopped and said, "Lord, thank you. Thank you for carrying me through that season. Thank you for giving me strength when I didn't think I had any left. Thank you for being faithful, even when I couldn't always see it." Because here's what I've realized. We remember our failures so easily. We remember the conversations we wish we'd handled differently, or the opportunities that we missed, the prayers that still haven't been answered. But we forget God's faithfulness just as quickly. And maybe that's why Samuel stopped. Perhaps remembering isn't something we naturally do, but it's something we have to choose. And I've caught myself looking back a little more, not because I want to live in the past, and no, but because sometimes the past reminds us just how faithful God has been. And maybe that's what I hope this episode does for you. Not make you look backwards with regrets, but with gratitude. Because I know, thinking back to the dark days, there were moments where I didn't even know if I would have the next breath. And looking back at how far I've come from that moment, I'm full with so much of gratitude. And I have a feeling there are women listening today who are focused on holding everything together, that they've stopped to notice how much they've already come through. And if you're listening today, I wonder what your dark days were. Maybe as I was talking, someone's face came to your mind, or a hospital room, or a house you no longer live in, or a version of yourself you hardly recognize anymore. But whatever came to mind, don't rush past it. Because if God brought you through that season, He deserves the glory for it. Because His grace has quietly met you one ordinary day at a time. And I don't know your story, but I do know that life changes us. It changes us sometimes quietly and over time, through the conversations we never expected to have, the disappointments we never planned for, the prayers that really stretched us, and the joys that completely surprised us. And one day you wake up and realize you're not the same woman anymore, because God has been faithful. Sometimes it looks like having just enough strength for today, and that in itself is a blessing. What if that's what Samuel understood when he placed that stone in the ground? He wasn't pretending the journey was over. He wasn't saying there would never be another battle. He simply stopped to acknowledge what God had already done. Thus far, the Lord has helped us. And I really believe that we all need an Ebenezer every now and then. A moment to stop chasing what's next, to stop measuring ourselves against where we thought we'd be, and simply recognize the faithfulness of God. So today, I hope you will do just that. I hope you'll look back before you look ahead. I hope you'll remember before you rush on to the next prayer. And I hope somewhere in the middle of an ordinary day, you'll find yourself smiling as you realize that God has been far kinder, far more faithful, and far more present than you remembered. So, look at you, not with pride, with gratitude, because you've come further than you think, not by your own strength, but by God's faithfulness. Thus far, the Lord has helped you through every joy and every disappointment, every answered prayer and every unanswered one. God has been quietly shaping your life. Thus far, the Lord has helped you. And as always, keep going, keep growing, and stay soft. I'll meet you back here next week.